Thank you so much for joining me today. Parade's national tour kicked off in January of this year, yeah?
It did. Yeah, we got started in January.
How has that experience been so far?
It's it's been amazing. This is my first national tour, and I think like I've had so many friends who have toured and had this idea in my head of what it was going to be like, and some of those things have certainly been true. But getting to experience it for myself has been pretty special, and also traveling with this show in particular, I think offers a very unique touring experience. So it's been really fun so far.
That's exciting to hear. And you went to college in Michigan, correct, too?
I did. Go blue. I did.
So we're always excited to have someone from that has been to Michigan to return to the stage at the Fisher Theater. How does it feel to come back to the Mitten for Parade?
It feels amazing. I mean, it feels great to tour in any space. I feel like that was some of the only opportunity I had as like a young person wanting to do this, to see theater, and now to be able to come back to a theater or a place that I feel like was such a large part of my own artistic journey is really special.
Um, and so for this show, for Parade, can you tell us a little bit about it and how your character factors into the narrative?
Yeah. So, Parade is the dramatization of a very true story about Leo Frank, who is a Jewish man living in the South in 1913 and is put on trial for the murder of a very young Georgian girl. And it's about his efforts to prove his innocence, along with his wife, Lucille, and how those efforts kind of come against the anti Semitic fervor of the early 20th century American South. That's the easiest way to describe it. The show is about so many things. It's about love. It's about connection. It's about being able to like stand up for one another in the face of injustice. But to keep it as simple as possible, I think that's like the best abridged version of what we're doing up there.
Um, and then, sorry if I missed that. What role do you play, and how do you factor into that?
Right. So I play a character named Tom Watson. All of our characters are historical figures. And Tom Watson was a political figure as well as a publisher, and he publishes this newspaper called the Jeffersonian,
Hmm.
which really, in hindsight, kind of acted as like a bunch of collections of editorials from Tom himself,
Hmm.
that were meant to rile people up for his own political gain. Lots of people that have come to see the show describe my character as a puppet master. And I think that's pretty accurate. He works behind the scenes. He doesn't get, his own hands dirty. And he really is able to rile people up against Leo and Lucille, within the course of our story.
While this is kind of such a classic, story of what happened back in the day, it does feel very timely for nowadays as well.
Yeah, yes. Unfortunately, it does feel very timely. And you just, even since we've been on tour, there have been, things that have happened that, you know, are are sad, that kind of, inspire us to keep telling this story around the country.
So, what drew you to this project and role?
That's a good question. I actually fell in love with Parade really early on in my like artistic journey. It was one of the first shows where I really understood the impact of like the perfect lyrics, music, score, book coming together in a really beautiful way to tell a story. It was some of the first material I ever sang like in front of people to work, and um, I didn't get to see it on Broadway, but there was so much talk of it, and like I was so excited when they announced the tour. Um, yeah, it's just a piece that has been with me for a long time, and so now to tell it in this way, um, is really cool and very fulfilling.
Do you feel like there's any pressure to telling a story that's based on a real life event or person?
For sure. And I feel like you want to like honor those people in
Hmm.
a way. Michael Arden, our director, he talks about like the ghosts of this story being with us. while we tell the story. And so I think we as the actors and also the creative team like have taken a lot of care to try to honor those people's story in a nice way.
How do you, I guess, like when you're developing the character, is it like just do you just do just what's on the page? Do you kind of take in like do you look up life events of what happened? Tom Watson being a real person. Like how do you approach your characterization of Tom in Parade?
Yeah, I think the events like that happen actually within the story are the most
Mhm.
important parts. Like, I don't
Sure.
know if my research of Tom and kind of the intricacies of his life, which I certainly like have done that work. I don't know if those actually come across to the audience, but it's certainly like for the inner life of me as an actor are important. And also just when you're doing like a longer run of a show, I think some of those details become little lifelines for when things start to feel monotonous.
Hmm.
You start to think about those little intricacies that aren't immediately apparent to an audience or to the story that we're telling. But yeah, no, those things have been very important to me. And Tom is kind of an elusive figure within history. There's not a ton about like his personal life or anything like that. And so also um, making the fun choices of my own have been nice as well. Like as we continue to do it.
Now, as an actor, because I'm not an actor, I'm on the outside perspective. But when you're in a role like this, especially with something like a tour, and you're with the show for quite a while, does the role continue to always develop, or do you feel like you have a pretty good handle on it? Like as it's beginning, you began in January. Do you feel like you had a pretty good handle on it, or do you feel like it always is changing?
I think I'm just starting to realize that it will be changing. Like we're still, this is our we're technically in our fourth city right now, 4 of 17. Um and I'm realizing that I have a little bit more wiggle room.
Mm-hmm.
Um than I might have initially thought. And just like as the show becomes more a part of like my body and a little bit more second nature, like I said, some of those fun little details I think can start to incorporate a little bit more. Um, and we can find new things every night, which is fun. Like I didn't actually expect that when I started.
It makes it like every day is a different day. Every day is a different
Yeah,
story a little bit.
right, exactly.
So how do you feel like this one differs from some of your past roles? Because I was looking at your list. You've been in like Sound of Music, Camelot, Sweeney Todd. You like been in so many different shows, different production levels. Like, how does this differ from some of your past roles?
Yeah, I was really when I found out I was going to be doing this track, I was a little bit scared because it was very different than a lot of things that I had done in the past. And he's really, a dicey guy. Um, and I find myself typically playing more like fun-loving, kind of smiley, laughing characters. And so I was excited, but excited and scared to play Tom. Um, but I think the process was pretty much the same. Like the research
Mm-hmm.
that I did for it, um, you know, yeah, I don't think there was a huge difference in the way that I approached it. But as an actor, it's been fun to step into some different kind of shoes than I'm typically used to.
I love that.
Yeah.
What themes of Parade resonate the most with you?
I think that the themes of connection are really special, and those parts of the show feel like a release in a way
Mm-hmm.
because it is a very dark show. It's very intense, um, and so I've often described it as like a courtroom drama. A huge part of the show takes place like within the trial itself, and so to have moments where you see Leo and Lucille or other members of the community coming together and connecting, I
Mm-hmm.
think that I think that those moments where you get to kind of release this tension that you've built up through the rest of the show um, are really special and really important. Um, yeah, and also the theme that like love, expressing love and expressing gratitude about someone and their impact on you. is never, there's not a time limit on that. And there's a song at the end of the show called All the Wasted Time, which I think describes that really well. You know, you can tell someone you love them, you can express gratitude to them, um, whenever it feels like most palpable, and hopefully it means just as much as if you had done that sooner.
I love that. And that really is a universal message that so many people hopefully are going to be able to walk away from this with.
Yeah, I hope so too. And like I feel like we talk a lot about, kind of the trigger warnings of the show, and how to like brace yourself for what you're about to see. But I think it's really important to like carry those moments of love like throughout.
Because there's truly beauty in tragedy, you know. And while this is a very tragic story, there is love is one of those things that does connect and bring, and you know, and it rounds out the tragedy of what happened.
Right. Yeah, and hopefully people walk away like knowing something that they didn't know before, and I think that's important too.
How has your time on this production challenged you as an actor?
I mean, this is the longest run of something that I've ever done,
Okay.
and I think that has been a really interesting challenge. Like we kind of talked about earlier, like finding things to keep it interesting, um, but like leaning on my fellow actors has been like a huge part of that. Um, Also, this Tom's songs in particular, um, have are very heavy lyrically. When you see when you see the show, you'll understand. Like he doesn't really repeat any lyrics. Everything he says is new, and
Oh,
everything
okay.
he asks is everything he says is a question, because I think that's one of his tactics to ask questions about people, leading questions so that they can make up their own answers, um, which are actually his answers. Um, and so embodying some of that music, I think, was really hard. And a lot of the music in the show, my music especially, like is a bit of a like a train. Like once you get on, you just have to cross your fingers and like hope and pray that you make it to the end, because there's not really any getting off or breaks in that way. And so yeah, I think just like gearing yourself up to like get on the train and actually like live truthfully as you're going through the journey, um, has been a bit of a challenge, and something I'm still kind of figuring out, to be honest. It's just now like setting in, I think, in a nice way.
It sounds like lyrically, it's like it's musically the representation of what like a lawyer or an attorney or a politician is.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Um, I'm a psychologist during my day job, so I always ask, how do you prioritize your mental health while on tour, but also when you're telling such a heavy story such as this?
Yeah, that's a great question. We from the jump, in rehearsals, in even like during music rehearsals, I mean, we really started to talk about like how we as a company care for each other, and how we deal with telling such a heavy story. And Michael, our director, was so clear about the fact that he did not need us to like embody these people every night on stage,
Okay.
and how, I think some people benefit from that, and I think some people, some shows that might serve the story and the way that you're telling it, but because of the content of this show, the lyrics, the music, the book, they do such a good job of conveying what we want to say that we don't have to hold those things within us, in a really intense way. So there are moments even within the show that wouldn't be apparent to an audience, but that are very helpful to us, to start this process of what we call de-rolling, which is like letting go of some of the sentiments of your character and allowing like yourself to come through. Um, like we have several moments worked into the show where we as a company like take a breath together. Um, and I think that's incredibly helpful, just like doing the show every single day. Um, and then I always like try to find one day a week that is just like for self care, like whether it's just going to the gym or like a sauna, a massage. Like I think all those things like are nice and also a privilege to have as well. Um, so I'm grateful to to have those moments, like as we tell this difficult story.
I love that there's like a collectiveness to like, yeah, you're all telling it together. So being able to kind of rely on each other and like have that, that they always talk about the family bond almost of productions, and
Yeah,
to be able to lean on each other during telling the story is probably very beneficial.
for sure.
So, are there any specific experiences you look for when you stop in a new city? Like you're on the road, you're going to be on the road for a while. You're like, oh, I gotta look for coffee shops. I gotta look for pizza
Oh yeah.
places. Like,
Oh yeah, it's like food, 100% food. I ask like whenever we talk to someone like at the stage door, or just like meeting people out and about, like that's my I want to know like where people are eating, or like we're only there for a certain amount of time, so like, where do I have to eat in a place? My partner actually made me for Christmas this Google Doc of all the cities we were going to, and this like super detailed list of like food spots with details about like it's open after the show, it's like this far away from the theater, which was so sweet. And I use it all the time just to like find little hidden gems and spots. And he took a lot of time to do it, so I'm very appreciative to Spencer for that. But yeah, food for sure is my favorite thing to explore. Like after this, we're going to a donut shop. Like we're Ubering to find the best donuts in Cleveland.
love that. Shout out to Spencer for doing that, because that had to take a lot of work.
For sure. Yeah, he was always on his computer. I was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "It's none of your business. You'll find out later." Like it was great. It was perfect.
So, one final question before I let you go. What are you hoping on audiences take away from this touring production of Parade?
Yeah, I hope they take away. I hope that they are able to examine their own biases, and I hope that they're able to recognize that like just because someone is different, does not mean that they do not deserve like a fair chance within the law, and also like within their own spirit. I hope they give people a chance, and I hope that they walk away really recognizing the fact that, you know, as cliche as it might sound, the fact that love is so much more powerful than hate. Um, yeah, and I hope they walk away recognizing the connection to this story, and just with a knowledge of this case that might not be as universally understood as it should be.
Thank you so much for your time, Griffin. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it.
Parade arrives at the Fisher Theater February 25th and runs through March 9th, so get your tickets from Broadway in Detroit, and we'll see you there.
Thanks. Bye.